legal advice. The time to think about insurance is before you need it. So do yourself a favor, and before you pay your next insurance bill, give Ed and his team a call, 516-935-3900, or visit them online at www.allstate.com/EL. Edward H. Lehman Insurance is your trusted insurance advisor.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. The Nimble with Numbers team presents Chalk Blocked with Bo Big Time McBrayer.
Bam! I gotta know what a $5 shake tastes like.
That's hot. That's hot.
I want winners, Bo. You don't know diddly.
And his partner, Scott Stack Simpson.
Do you know who I am?
Trying to put Tiger Bomb on this jungle's nuts.
That's cute. I remember when I had my first beer.
I gotta catch a glimpse of these warlocks. Let's make a move. Let's make a move. Let's make a move.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to Chalk Block, the world's sexiest DFS show for now. We are the Nimble with Numbers production. Make sure you visit our YouTube and smash that subscribe button. My name is Bo McBrayer. My name is Bo McBrayer. Some people call me Big Time. Some people call me an asshole. They never call me late for dinner. Scotty Stacks is producing the show, but he's leaking mucus and preferred not to be on camera tonight. That's understandable. Jordan Vanek, the math magician, is heroically working tonight as a Florida sinkhole spelunker. Since my two brothers have left me to my own devices tonight, I decided to bring on an absolute fan favorite in the fantasy football community. He's a co-host on The Lateral and Rum Boys After Dark. We just came from there. A stellar musician who creates the jingles for popular podcasts on YouTube, shows that we all know and love, including Petite Pods with the infamous Cooter Doodle. He is genuinely one of the nicest humans on the face of the planet, which is incredibly rare for somebody from the state of Maryland. Everyone, oh, it's just me. Put your hands together and welcome Herms. What's good, Herms?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be part of Chalk Block, man. This is cool.
Yeah, you're on the show, man.
Yes. It's been a long time coming, and I'm really glad we were able to finally put this together. Thank you so much.
I'm actually kind of glad it's just the two of us because we're homies. And even though I don't have that crab cake connection that you and Scott have, it's a lot of fun to chop it up with somebody who, I mean, it's kind of cheesy, but we have so much in common that it's almost scary.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are two peas in a pod. We really are in so many ways. Also, right. Shout out hot sauce.
Shout out.
Because I feel like that was like the first connection that just, really, I mean, it blossomed out into other things that we, found out that we had in common. But our common love of hot sauce is really what brought us together. So, I mean, just like, dude, man, because if you're eating your food and you're keeping it, super bland, like you're making mistakes. You're making mistakes in your life. You got to make it spicy. You have to.
Of course. And not just spicy, but certain foods like of course, BigTimeFlavor.co sponsors the Chalk Block show. As a co-host, I'd be a derelict of my duty to not sponsor the show that I co-host. But Big Time Flavor Co., home of the world's most deliciously intense condiment, hot box gourmet small batch hot sauce. It's my creation. It's my baby. It's made some residual income for me, and I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the smiles, the stories, the people that tell me that they don't look at the same food they've been eating for decades the same way anymore, and it's a good thing. Like, I didn't ruin anybody's meals. And so I kind of came up with a little catchphrase a couple months ago where it's like, yeah, I've been making your mother-in-law's cooking tolerable since 2020. So we can build on from there longer term as we keep going along.
Totally. And, live on air testimonial, we did not, plan this beforehand. Before I even officially met you and talked to you, I had purchased the Hotbox hot sauce, put that stuff on my food, and like it really takes it to another place. Because like, here's my thing, and I've talked about it plenty of times. If anybody is familiar with my works in the past and whatnot, my favorite pizza includes pepperoni, bacon, and banana pepper. If I get that pizza and I throw that hot box on it, it goes like it's already a good pizza by itself without the hot box on it. But like,
Of course.
It really transforms it. It really does. And I gotta say, just like shout out Hot Box Hot Sauce. I'm a huge fan.
And you can also get the Smoke Shack barbecue rub. You can also get the taco sizzin. You can get the Nashville hot seasoning that I call that's clucking hot. And of course,
innuendo.
Yeah, lots of innuendo. And then, of course, you have my new product that it's an all-purpose blend. It's called Amigo, and that's gonna be something you can literally put on everything. I think you could probably put it on a flip-flop, and it's good. Shout out Guy Fieri for that lovely analogy that he uses on Triple D. Put it on a flip-flop; it's still good. That's what I'm hoping to do with Amigo is bring a seasoning blend to the table that is the home chef's best friend. It's like, I'm not going to underseason anything if I have Amigo right here next to me. Enough plugging my food brand that I love so much. But you're admittedly a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. It's kind of weird. Most people kind of live in the shadows with that information.
It wasn't a choice, I promise.
It must not have been. But, I mean, we're talking about a franchise with 6 Super Bowl championships, which is tied for the most with the Patriots. I mean, it's something to be proud of as a franchise. I mean, winning a Super Bowl is extremely difficult.
Totally.
But this season is going to be different. I think that you guys are kind of entering kind of an in-between phase of mediocrity with an aging Super Bowl champion quarterback with injury history that is very concerning. A defense that hopefully will rebound to be just as good as they were before Devin Bush went down last season, which was why they were undefeated. Not their offense, that's for sure. But I'm looking for 2021, and I mean, I get mysteriously aroused when somebody mentions the name Najee Harris. I mean, I've been watching his high school tape. He's a NorCal product, and I'm a big NorCal football fan. I love anybody who comes from the Bay Area or the Sacramento area or north of Sacramento, where I'm from. And I pay attention to those products. And just like Jonah Williams came from Folsom High School and went to Alabama, recruited by the best college football coach in the country now for Oregon, Mario Cristobal. But Jonah Williams went from the NorCal area to Alabama, and so did Najee Harris from Oakland, the toughest, grittiest town in Northern California, Oakland, California. You might find guys like Deshaun Jackson from Oakland, Marcus Peters from Oakland, and of course, beast mode Marshawn Lynch from Oakland. And that's kind of the model that I see Najee Harris following, is that beast mode model. He's the total package. You didn't really in Marshawn Lynch's prime, you didn't say he was weak at any facet of the game. He was an underrated receiver. He's a great in pass pro, powerful runner, of course, breaks lots of tackles. Not the fastest guy in the world, but sometimes when you have a running back and they just have the it factor, it doesn't matter how fast they are. Look at Emmitt Smith. The guy could find a hole like an octopus, a keyhole in the line. He's going to find it, and he's going to score because you can't bring him down on the first guy. Najee Harris is in that same cut of cloth. And so I do get aroused when somebody mentions Najee Harris because he's one of my favorite football players. And you and I, before the draft, both agreed that he was probably going to number 21 at the Pittsburgh Steelers if he didn't get sniped earlier than that.
Oh, yeah.
There were a couple running back hungry teams that could have taken running back before that point, but they didn't. And so we get to victory lap that we were both right. And of course, you get to victory lap twice because the great top running back of this class went to your Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's get your thoughts on redraft since that's your specialty. I'm more of a DFS and dynasty guy, but I cut my teeth in redraft just like everybody else, and I want to get your thoughts on Najee, and then the rest of the Steelers' skill positions, because there's a lot of things up in the air for the Pittsburgh Steelers on offense.
Oh, most certainly. And, and hey, you got your boy Herms in the building. Like, I'm known for my antics and, just like going off the wall and saying a bunch of crazy stuff and whatnot. The personality.
You do you, boo-boo.
But this is being nimble with numbers. And this is a, show about numbers, about knowledge. So it's just like, you know what? I know what the stage is. I'll tone it down and I'll give you the things that you need to know. First and foremost, I understand there's been a lot of discussion around the fact that, the offensive line is only returning one starter from a year ago. There's a lot of concern in, the fantasy space, even just like, just casual, I wouldn't say casual. Well, it's like fantasy football and then like actual football fans. So, yeah, I mean, that's a great place to start because Alejandro Villanueva gone. David DeCastro got cut recently. Filer going on out to, the Chargers. Pouncey retires. So what's happening? What's going on? Who knows? I know. I have the answer. I know what's going on because this is the team that I follow. Here's the thing. Yes, it's alarming that many of the starters from last year
80%, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. We're gonna have to have the math magician run those numbers. But if my math is correct, and your math is correct, then yes, so it's like there's a lot of stuff going on there. But continuity of the offensive line is a very important thing. It's something that even if you've never played football before, it's pretty apparent, because you're working together as a unit. Obviously, it's important to have that connective tissue, both like mentally and physically and all that stuff, to know what the assignments and whatever. The Steelers had that continuity for an incredibly long time, and it was a great group for as long as they ran together. It helped facilitate Le'Veon Bell being a fantastic player. It facilitated that year or two of James Conner being a very good, breakout guy, especially, because if you took a chance on him and, the Lev Bell holdout time, then definitely, it paid dividends for sure. So we look back at those names and we look at the accolades and like the Pro Bowls and the All Pro and all this stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, they're all disappearing left and right. What are we going to do? Oh no, what's happening? Oh, there's so many new names. Well, here's the thing. They know what they're doing. The Pittsburgh Steelers it's not an organization that's clueless by any means. No. So, yes, DeCastro moving on. Like, yes, and I remember even being on Twitter that day, people just being like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, that was so dumb. Because they look at the previous accolades of DeCastro, and like, yes, I thank him for his, for his service to the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, over the last couple of years, if you look at his, I'm a fan of PFF. That's just me. Whatever you make of it is up to you. You choose to interpret numbers however you want to. I value
data, but PFF data, not their rankings.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes. So, their run blocking grades, their pass blocking grades, all this stuff. So it's like, I hold that in a very high esteem. If we look back at that through the lens of the PFF grading system on blocking, and also just, me as a Steelers fan, anecdotally speaking, having seen it with my own two eyes, DeCastro really fell off in the run blocking department, as did Alejandro Villanueva. Like, things got really dicey toward the end there, to the point where people are looking at, and this is a very long-winded way of saying, do not be afraid of what's going to happen with Najee Harris, because not only did they draft Najee Harris, but they also brought in Pat Freiermuth, who, yes, tight end, but, tight ends have to block too. They're not, for fantasy, we always think about the pass catching, but it's also a position that has a lot of blocking responsibilities. And Pat Freiermuth, to his credit, is a very well-rounded tight end. And also Kendrick Green coming out of Illinois. The only reason I feel like he fell to the third round is because he split time between center and guard when playing at Illinois. Had he, been dedicated to a specific position, again, going back to those PFF grades, in this class of offensive linemen, he was the 7th rated run blocker, if I remember correctly. Let's be honest. And, it was mentioned earlier, in the comments, shout out, they signed Trey Turner to come in.
The same day that they cut DeCastro. They cut DeCastro and already had Trey Turner under contract. He just had to sign his name on the dotted line that same day.
Exactly. That's really all they had to do. So, they got they did that through the draft. They brought in Trey Turner immediately, who, and also, I said the same thing about DeCastro. I will be fair and objective. Trey Turner has also dealt with his own injuries, whatnot. His run blocking has regressed to a certain point, but at the same time, it's more or less a lateral move at the end of the day. And also, Zach Banner missed a significant amount of time last year, and he's somebody that, in my opinion, very, very good offensive. I mean, you're familiar with him because he's from out in the, the California region. Like, Zach Banner is a known name. He's a known commodity.
Underrated.
All things considered, yes, very underrated. All things considered, I really think, so yes, is the Steelers' offensive line great? No, I'm not going to pretend that it's great. Nobody should pretend that it's great. But is it so bad that we have to be nervous about a running back who is going to get, at minimum, 300 touches in this offense? Because who's taking work away from him? Seriously, honestly, Kalen Ballage, does he scare you?
No. And if anything,
does he scare you?
Benny Snell ain't making that team.
Anthony McFarland, is he scaring you?
McFarland's the only guy I can see spelling him, and that's nothing. Nobody scares me. Nobody's taking anything away from the guy they just got in the first round. My dog.
You hear that? You hear that enthusiasm?
Yeah. So my piece on that offensive line is it any worse? No. It's not any worse than it was last year. And what's the difference? If we're looking at the difference, it's, of course, you got a lot of fresh faces along that offensive line, which is a neutral move, in my opinion. It can't be any worse than what they were last year. By far the worst run offense. And the reason for that wasn't the talent along the line. Yeah, they had a couple older guys that regressed, like DeCastro and everybody else that was on that line, but it was all their offensive coordinator's fault. Their head coach, Tomlin, took blame for not emphasizing physicality like they had been for a decade before that, 2 decades before that. The Steelers were known for the best defense and punching you in the mouth on offense and play action passing. They did the defensive part to a T until Devin Bush went down. Then they lost their field general. Even as a rookie, that dude's an absolute monster. Their pass rush was still good, but their corners were never good enough to make up for their middle linebacker not calling the right play reads, the right audibles into defensive formations.
Yeah.
That cost them a ton of field position. And of course, if you're putting your offensive linemen, the guys that are programmed in their brain since Pop Warner to move forward and move bodies out of the way, and their offensive coordinator, I forget his name. He's so irrelevant now because he got fired.
Randy Fichtner.
Yeah, Randy. All I heard was Randy this, Randy that. Put his big hog mollies on roller skates all season long. He ran about 6 different run plays all season long, and he only ran them for the sake of, I haven't called a run play in a while. Yeah, that's a problem because you got those guys moving backwards on every single play. They're moving backwards with a quarterback who's almost 40 years old. He's coming off elbow surgery, and he's got wide receivers who are pretty talented. I mean, Claypool was a revelation this last year. Deontay Johnson's one of the best receivers at getting open in the entire league. Juju covers himself. He's just a big body with good hands. But you have Ben Roethlisberger, who's not pushing the ball down the field. He's basically 3-step dropping it and getting it off. And then James Conner running into a wall. And then when he had a lane to run through, he's not that good of an athlete. He's got pretty average at best vision, no explosive ability. He's a good goal line back because he's a big, huge dude. But that offense, when they were in a run formation, you knew it was going to be one of 6 run plays. And in the National Football League, if you think that's going to work, it's not. We saw it. 30 second with the run game. And I mean, their passing game has high volume enough to make their receivers fantasy relevant. But even Big Ben with 3 fantasy relevant wide receivers, he wasn't that good. Like, he was pretty steady, but he was never like blow you up kind of numbers with a quarterback. But yeah, Najee Harris, I think his stock is way up because he's just simply a better football player than James Conner ever was already.
Yeah, and shout out Erie, Pennsylvania. That is where it's the home of my parents. It's the reason that I am a Steelers fan, despite the fact that I'm born and raised in Maryland. James Conner, also from Erie, Pennsylvania, went to school with relatives of mine, so I mean, like, I have that
Great
personal
guy.
connection. So and like overcoming, cancer and all that. I mean, I'm proud to have his jersey in my collection. I absolutely adore James Conner, but the fact of the matter is, there's a reason he's in the NFL, but there's also a reason that his jersey isn't, more popular,
right?
As we addressed. So, just at the end of and also, like, I completely agree with you in terms of the fact in Randy Fichtner. I mean, that dude, the only reason he became the offensive coordinator is because he had a very good relationship with Ben Roethlisberger. And at the time they were looking for a new offensive coordinator, Ben was really looking for a yes man. And that's what they did. And, it went okay at first, but as, time went along and, the line dwindled and all sorts of things. And also his arm, as we that elbow, I mean, that was a very serious injury. Like, it was definitely time for a change. And, promoting Matt Canada from quarterbacks coach to offensive coordinator.
Great.
I think, yes, 100%. Great move. And I think that, transitions very well into the rest of the skill position. So it's like, in terms of the wide receivers, like, yes, as you said, they're all very talented. But I think the question in a lot of people's minds is like, well, who do I trust? And I think it really comes down to this in my mind. So being a fan of the team, I read a lot about the team. I follow all the news closely. Also, fun fact, I have a background, in journalism, studied in school. I wrote for, my own school paper, did all this other, like this, I know what all this is about in terms of, the beat writing and all that. The Steelers beat reporters are very reliable. They cover the team incredibly well. And also the coaching staff, that Mike Tomlin has, they're a relatively honest coaching staff. They do not beat around the bush with a lot of coach speak. And that's something that I, as a fan and also as a fantasy analyst, really appreciate. So what I'm really looking forward to knowing is, because here's the thing, Matt Canada, if you look back at his coaching history, especially at the collegiate level, I mean, like his offensive system, like it's complicated in terms of, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of disguising things. There's a lot of end arounds. There's a lot of play action. There's a lot of trickery that goes on.
That sounds a lot like what they were missing out on last season.
And that's the complicated part of the entire thing, is that it's a complete 180. So what I really want to know for myself, in order to give advice about the wide receivers, is this going to be a slow burn between transitioning from the old guard to the new system under Matt Canada, or are we going to see from week one Matt Canada's system? That will say a lot to me. And here's why. Because in that old guard system that we referenced before, which is, again, like I said a little bit ago, an extension of Ben Roethlisberger's preferences, in that situation, Deontay Johnson is going to be the wide receiver that you want, because the depth of target that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be able to offer at this point in his career is not going to be super deep. That is something that is definitely more advantageous for somebody like a Deontay Johnson than it would be for somebody like a Chase Claypool. However, if we went full Matt Canada from week one with all the end arounds and the trickery and the play action, that is very conducive to the talent of a Chase Claypool. So if I'm going to rank them 1 through 3, the number 2 is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster regardless. That is my opinion as a fan. That is just what it is. I'm telling you what I know. And but here's the thing, the 1 and the 3, if it's going to be more of the old guard that slow burns into slowly integrating Canada's system, I will prefer Deontay Johnson. But if we get reports from the beat reporters and the coaching staff says, we're just going to let Matt Canada do his thing, whatever, balls to the wall, gang, let's do it, Chase Claypool is going to be the wide receiver that I want from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know that last year, a lot of his production, if we break it down, just like game by game, you see the 4 touchdown game. You see the couple like end arounds at the goal line. It's fair. You could call it anomalous if you want to, quote unquote. But, there's still a very clear difference between the floor and the ceiling. But if we transition to Canada, that gap narrows. Yeah. It's more conducive to his style.
And that was the one thing I give Randy credit for, was saying, hey, I have a rookie wide receiver out of Notre Dame that's 6'4" and runs a 4.4 40. Maybe we give him the damn ball. And
who'd have thought?
His depth of target wasn't very high either, because he ran a lot of those screens. He ran a lot of those little shovel passes, the forward shovel passes, the touch passes, and they just let him do what he does: run fast, be big and physical, and determined to find the goal line. And he did it. And I was happy to get Chase Claypool in Dynasty really late and then trade him for extreme value after the 4-touchdown game. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that quick flip on somebody who's still got middle round draft capital, and he's a talented kid, but he's still really raw. And I'm not sure that his development is going to be helped at all by having Ben Roethlisberger as his quarterback. But like you said, Canada makes a huge difference, because I think what they're going to be running a lot of that motion, that speed sprint out style that Ben really isn't suited for, but he can still do it. Ben's a humongous dude with basically no arm left, but he's more mobile than you give him credit for. And he's impossible to bring down because he's so freaking big and strong. And so if you're gonna say, hey, from last year when we basically just dropped back and shotgun every single play, and we threw a 10-yard slant to Deontay or a 10-yard out to Deontay, or we found Juju because luckily the defense was playing zone and not man, because man coverage Juju is never open, literally never.
Yep.
And that's kind of what their offense was last year. It was like, hey, we're going to drop back every single play. We're going to find the open guy as quickly as possible, because we know we're not getting a push up front. And the reason you're not going to push up front is because you're not telling your offensive linemen, hey, punch these guys in the mouth in the first quarter and get some chunk yardage, so they have to respect the run. Nobody had to respect the run, even when they were winning 11 games in a row.
Nope.
It was just basically, hey, our wide receivers are really good, and our quarterback doesn't have a strong arm anymore, but he's still damn accurate.
Yeah. And
that's how they won, with great defense and timely touchdowns. But this year it's going to be way different. I think even if they do go old guard, fading into Canada's system, they're going to run a lot more of those zone runs. They're going to really emphasize getting the defensive line into motion in the zone blocking scheme, and they're going to run a lot of play action off of that. And that, again, like you said, brings Chase Claypool into big play territory, where you don't necessarily have to throw it deep if you got a guy going against the flow of the offense, the opposite direction, running a crossing route against the flow of that zone play action.
Oh, yeah.
And you got a guy who's 6'4", runs a 4.4, running away from all the defenders. It doesn't matter who's out there trying to cover him. That's a mismatch. And if you can get defensive linemen moving the direction you want them to move, and the offensive linemen are having fun because they're taking the snap and they're going forward, or they're going diagonal and they're just basically grading the road for you, Najee Harris is going to have fun too, because that kid's a way better receiver than people give him credit for.
Yes, he is, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because yes, a lot is made of his size and his speed and his ability to barrel over people. And also, like, shout out my man Angelo Analysis. He really broke it down.
Absolute best tape and analyzer in the game.
Oh yeah, I mean, I absolutely adore him. I consider him a friend, a wonderful person, like straight up. But also, but just like inside the mind a little bit, picking his brain about him. One thing that Najee really brings to the table, like the slalom technique, you know what I mean? Just like his footwork is absolutely incredible. But yes, I mean, so the rushing thing aside, that's the greater point here. The receiving is very underrated. And then there have been times, I remember seeing a photo that like Ray Garvin tweeted out. I think it was like last week or a couple weeks ago, just like a snapshot that somebody had, just like making like the big one-handed catch extended. Like Najee Harris is going to be able to. I mean, if I say right now, Najee Harris is going to have 55 receptions next year on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, oh, that's definitely happening, 10 being, oh, you're absolutely insane. Where are you at on that? Because I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
Just judging by what the Steelers usually do with their running backs, it's probably a 2 or 3 because they're trying to find that outlet pass. They're trying to. Yeah. And they tried it with James Conner last year, but because nobody was scared of him running the ball, they pretty much just sat on him on the screen game because they knew that he had nothing else. And so even if you were just running basic screens and swings and a couple of wheel routes with Najee, the defense has to respect his ability to move in space and his ability, once he catches it, to break tackles, which James Conner didn't have.
Yeah, and so on that scale that I laid out, that 2 or 3 is 45 or 50 catches, which if you're playing in a PPR league, you're definitely going to appreciate, on top of the fact that, during Mike Tomlin's entire tenure, there are usually around 20 touches a game for the lead running back. There's one guy, and that's it. And that goes back to the thing I was saying earlier, and the thing that we had agreed on. Who's scaring you, taking things away? Nobody. So what this really boils down to for me is that, I don't care if this is a hot take or not, because I think it's fairly reasonable. And I'm even taking bias out of the equation in my personal rankings for redraft, because, as you said earlier, that's what I do. Najee Harris is my RB5. It's a little... Look, it could be a little bullish, but either way, here's the thing though, the real big part about this, even if he doesn't hit that 5 mark, there is no way, unless he gets injured, he does not finish inside the top 12, purely based off of volume alone. Because even if he is horrifically inefficient and the offensive line is worse than we think it is, and it is as bad as, the whole hive mind of, the fantasy world thinks it is, which is not, as we established, for all intents and purposes, if those people are right and this is the worst offensive line in the history of the world, the volume, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at that point, because volume is king in fantasy, and nobody is going to get in his way. What's stopping him? Nothing. He's going to finish as an RB1 unless he gets hurt. That is just the facts. That is what is going to happen.
Yeah, and I kind of pumped the brakes a little bit on him right after the draft because of that. I mean, you go into a system that is unknown, basically. You get a guy who's a rookie who has a learning curve. Running back's learning curve isn't as steep as the other positions because you have pretty simple tasks that you're either good at or you're not. And if you're not good at certain things, they're not going to give you as many snaps. Najee Harris is good at everything. He's not amazing at blowing you away with speed and agility, but I saw him jump over a dude in the college football playoff last year.
Right?
I think he's pretty athletic. He's 6'2", 235 pounds, and whether he runs a 4.5 or 4.6, I don't give a crap because the dude is good at every single facet of the running back position. And if he's great at knowing where his place is and finding the right spot and doing the most with his touches, then there's no reason why, like you said, he's an RB1 because of talent alone and opportunity. And there's not very many running backs left in this league that can say that. And that's, I get where you're putting him at RB5 because, if you look at just sheer volume, how many bell cows are left in this league?
Not very many, man.
4, 5, 6, maybe. The rest of them are in some kind of timeshare. We're talking. The only reason we saw a couple more bell cows last year is because of injuries or COVID. James Robinson had the highest snap share of any running back in a long time because there was literally nobody else, and he was an undrafted guy. Yeah. Imagine a guy who was drafted in the first round in basically the same situation as James Robinson was in last year.
Exactly. Thank you. And also, and to your point about,
it puts me with him at redraft RB10, which is well within earshot of RB5 because I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of separation there. And went immediately post draft. I had him at 18, and then I started breaking it down. I was like, think about it. Who's going to steal touches from him? Nobody. Who is going to what kind of weakness does he have in his game that might get exposed? There isn't one. talent wins. And if you have talent that's going to touch the ball 300 plus times, you better have a good reason for taking somebody over him in the first round, early second.
Yeah, and to your point about, the learning curve being a thing, like, yes, it is for every player, but also, like you said, it's a little quicker to overcome for running backs. Even he said, when asked about it at mini camp, is it possible that it's just, him, playing certain things up to the media? Sure, it's within the realm of possibility, but he is on record as saying a lot of what they are telling me to do is very familiar to me because it reminds me of what I was doing in my time at Alabama, which is something he clearly thrived in, a place that he clearly had a good time being at. So, like, come on.
And he's been making one-handed catches since high school.
Yeah, exactly. And just, I mean, like, also, like, I just want to quickly shout out, aside from the on-field talent, just like, considering his upbringing and everything he's had to overcome. And also, he's very charming. He's very funny. I mean, it's really hard to not root for this guy.
He's a dude.
Like,
the dude
he's
spent,
a good dude.
You have all the pomp and circumstance of the NFL draft. It's the biggest night of everybody's life that's involved in it. And this dude is watching it from the homeless shelter that he grew up in, with all the kids that are going through what he went through when he was their age. How much of a dude, how do you root against a guy who spends the biggest, most important night of his entire life with kids that are going through the same stuff that he went through? That's incredible.
Yeah, and I know that this is nimble with numbers, not nimble with anecdotal evidence, but at the same time, it's hard to overlook.
I'm the anecdotal guy on this team, so it's my show tonight. We're doing anecdotal and numbers.
There it is. Hell yeah. So, like, straight up, honestly, just like, I mean, like, we already covered the reasons he's a tremendous player on the field, but also just, bringing it back as a human being. Shout out Najee Harris. If you're listening, you're the best. You are the best, and I love you.
Yep. All right, so let's move on. We're not going to move too far away from the Steelers. We're going to go with their division rivals here. We're already in the AFC North right now. This one we're gonna touch on a little bit quicker. I want your best redraft values from each of the rest of the teams. So you got the Ravens, you got the Browns, and the Bengals. It's going to be a bloodbath division. Basically, this is one of the strongest divisions in the entire league. If you match them up with the NFC West, we're talking about two of the toughest divisions in the entire circuit. The strength of schedule is ridiculous. Give me some redraft values from each of those other three teams.
Okay, well, if we're going to start with, just thinking in alphabetical order, Baltimore Ravens. So the Baltimore Ravens, okay, so biggest value at this point, a lot of people who are super into fantasy football are already aware of the existence of the Gus Bus, but Gus Edwards, shout out, coming back, re-sign, what is it, a 2-year, $10 million deal? I mean, like, they invested in him.
That's real money.
That's real money. That ain't fantasy money. That's real money, folks. And, he's a lock for 700 yards rushing at least.
He does it every year. Every year, 700 yards.
Yeah, and, so between the fact that has literally happened and the fact that they paid him real money, like, yes, J.K. Dobbins is the lead running back. Lamar Jackson is the lead running back. But let's be real.
But Dobbins is a stud at running back.
Yes, J.K. Dobbins will get his, Lamar Jackson will get his, but just thinking about the Ravens offense and, being under Greg Roman, like, we know it's run. That's how it works. And they got cute at the beginning of last year. And, just like a quick aside, I know that there are some people skeptical about what Lamar Jackson can be, blah, blah, blah. The first part of last year, I feel like they tried to get a little cute, tried to disguise certain things, hide their identity a little bit. When they abandoned that, And
It
they
didn't
really
last
let
anyway.
it loose. Exactly. It was weird, and it was weird, and it real life consequences on top of fantasy consequences. They learned for the better to just trust what they know, what they're good at, do the thing. And Lamar Jackson really popped off because I can't remember what it was, but it was from week 13 or something on. I can't remember what it
Unbeatable.
was, but yeah, he was QB 2 or something in points per game at that. Whatever. Look back at the numbers for yourself. That's not my job right now. But seriously, because trust me, Lamar Jackson, he's my redraft QB number 1. But again, bringing it back to Gus Edwards, we have seen they're just going to run the ball. That's all they're going to do. And, whether or not J.K. Dobbins gets hurt or whatever, Gus Edwards is going to, at minimum, be a decent flex option, especially if you play a non-PPR, a half PPR, and full PPR, it gets a little dicey, but even then there's still something there. But the other part of it is the value that Gus Edwards brings to the table if something happens to Dobbins, that's to the moon. Because at that point, they're going to have to fully pivot and be
Gus can handle the load because he's done it.
Not only that, but who's behind him at that point if there's no Dobbins? Justice Hill? I mean, don't get me wrong. I was a big fan of Justice Hill coming out of OK State, but look at how that turned out. I will not be dying on that Justice Hill anymore.
No.
So, I died on that Justice Hill for too many times.
You and me both, brother. So, yeah, I mean, I think my value for the Ravens is going to come with the wide receiver position because nobody wants him. Nobody wants Marquise Brown. Nobody wants Rashad Bateman because even though he was one of the top 3 wide receivers in this class, he went to the Ravens, and that landing spot scared everybody off. We're still talking about a wide receiver who runs extremely precise routes. He dominated at Minnesota, which Minnesota doesn't dominate anybody. But if you look at Rashad Bateman's tape, you're like, hey, they had one guy that dominated everybody. Yeah. And then he comes out, and they're like, oh, he's an ex-Keenan Allen because he's a really precise route runner with great hands, best hands in the class. And then a guy comes out and runs a 4.39. That jumps off the page for me. And so he's Hollywood Brown that actually knows how to play wide receiver. And that's not a knock on Brown. Brown's a big play threat every time he touches the ball. But Marquise Brown is not Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman, you get him in the 10th, 11th, 12th round these days. He doesn't need volume, and he's going to probably get volume because he's replacing Willie Snead.
Yes, thank you.
If you remember, Marquise Brown's volume was severely hampered by Willie Snead. And Willie Snead was never open, never made big plays. But the problem was the dude never missed any games. He was always on the field and always getting all the targets. And now you got a guy who actually knows how to run routes. He's blazing fast. He's quicker than everybody else on the field. And you're going to put him in space in a run-first offense that's going to pretty much try to open up the book through play-action passing and running the RPO action with Lamar. Lamar shreds everybody with RPOs. The only reason Lamar hasn't passed it very well is because he's had Marquise Brown and nobody else. And Mark Andrews is good, but Mark Andrews can't be the only guy. And so I'm gonna definitely plug in Rashad Bateman late in a couple drafts because I want that upside. I want that big playability where it's actually pretty steady. I don't see a huge amount of volume because they don't throw it enough, but I see plenty of 5 or 6 touchdowns for Bateman. I see 100 targets, probably not much more than that, but that turns into 65, 70 catches, 900 yards, 850, 900 yards, and 5-6 touchdowns for a 10th, 11th, 12th rounder, maybe even later. I'm taking that all the way to the bank.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you brought up the Willie Snead thing because, that's the role that he's going to be walking into. And I remember during free agency when people were speculating, it's just like, oh, but wouldn't it be cool if Kenny Golladay goes to Baltimore? Oh, wouldn't it be cool if Allen Robinson went to Baltimore? It's just like, no. If you look at the scheme, they're looking for a guy to do that little slot, short area yard stuff. And that's what, Juju Smith-Schuster, player we briefly touched on earlier, like he would have been a decent fit for that. But Rashad Bateman really is a gorgeous fit for that because, despite the fact that I am a Steelers fan, as has been mentioned earlier, I live in the state of Maryland. I'm in the television market for the Baltimore Ravens, whether I like them or not. I see a lot of them. I see a lot of that offense. And that was the thought process that it seems that we both had the entire time. If they are going to take a receiver, they need to find somebody that can fill in that role. And they nailed it. Nailed it. So, and
they were never in position to get Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase obviously would have been the 1A position guy, but he was going top 5. They were never going to get Jamar Chase. And so you look at who's the next best route runner. Or I think Bateman's a better route runner, but Chase is just a more explosive talent. But I mean, if you're looking at a guy who just needs to get open, we're looking at Rashad Bateman, and they ended up trading away Orlando Brown to get an extra first round pick. They ended up spending on a defensive pass rusher, and that's fine. But you knew they were getting at least one wide receiver with one of those back-to-back picks at the end of the first.
Yeah,
nailed it.
They knew what they needed to do. They found the quote unquote actor to play the role, just using weird terminology, but it's just like, they cast the role perfectly. They knew what they were looking for. It's just honest. And like you said, is the tremendous upside there? Absolutely not. But at cost, at value,
Great value.
Definitely there.
All right, so let's move through the Browns and Bengals a little quicker so we can get to the really fun stuff at the end here.
Sounds good.
All right, Browns, Cleveland Browns. Who do you got? Best value.
Okay, best value. Honestly, nobody. Because here's the difficult thing. Baker Mayfield, so Kevin Stefanski being the head coach, implementing that system, we've seen what it is in his time in Minnesota. So it's like, okay, sure, I would prefer if I was starting my own team to take Baker Mayfield over Kirk Cousins, but even then the argument is fairly negligible if you want to go a certain way or whatever. I'm not going to call you an idiot, is what it is. But my point being in bringing that up is that in that type of system, with it being so run heavy, you will get QB1 weeks depending on matchup. But if you're going to rely on Baker Mayfield in a relatively quote unquote standard sized league, you're going to have some problems. In a deeper league, in a super flex league, whatever, okay, that's a different conversation. But yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. As far as the running backs go, I mean, Nick Chubb, we know who he is. It's just like
they're priced pretty accurately, I would say. Exactly. I think what you're getting at is their value is pretty well accurately. They're both Hunt and Chubb are accurately priced. You see in Chubb at the end of the first round. You see in Hunt in the third or fourth as a flex running, like a RB3 or a flex, or an RB2 in a zero RB strategy. Or a modified zero RB, you're getting Kareem Hunt a little bit later because he doesn't get as many looks, but he's a PPR monster, and it makes sense. The wide receivers, I mean, you got some pretty safe options, but they're I think the Browns are pretty accurately priced, and that's why I agree with you. Yeah. The value just isn't there because you're not seeing a bunch of that slip up. I mean, I guess if anybody's a value, it'd be OBJ because nobody really wants him. But I'm not getting stuck with that bag anymore. If he's going to put out another mediocre season with all the upside that he possesses as an athlete because he's a head case, I don't want that.
And honestly, I mean, I've said this on multiple other shows, and I've said this on Twitter a few times as well. I have completely given up on attempting to even form an opinion about Odell Beckham Jr. because even if you try and speak objectively about what has happened over the last few years of his career, the minute his name is mentioned, it becomes a completely different conversation. I don't know that it's possible for anybody to attempt to value him properly because he has that He has that star power that once upon a time we all believed he could be the next Jerry Rice or something. It's just I've given up. Honestly,
he very well could have been. He very well could have been.
He could have been.
But now he's an enigma. He's literally the biggest enigma at the wide receiver position.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult. Like honestly, when it comes to my rankings, I honestly don't even have it. And I don't say this in any sort of negative way. Just like I don't have him ranked because I can't. I'm so in my own head about it that I just can't do it.
So his range of outcomes. His range of outcomes is between wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 55. And that scares the crap out of everybody.
Yeah, it's like you're on your own. If you want to take that chance, you're on your own. Go with your opinion. But as far as Herms goes, I can't even give an opinion. I gave up. I resigned from any responsibility related to Odell Beckham, and also Juice Landry doing his thing. I mean, he could be okay, but at the same time, because even last year things were complicated coming off of the hip surgery and whatnot. He's only getting older. That's hips are he's an important thing to have.
He's been a good player his whole career, but he's never been great.
Exactly. So it's just
when he was getting all the volume, he wasn't scoring touchdowns. When he was scoring touchdowns, he wasn't making any big plays alongside it. And you can always count on him being open because he's one of the best route runners still in the league, but he's not the athlete he used to be. He's broken down. And I mean, you can obviously you see him available late in a redraft. You're going to say, "Hey, Juice Landry's still there. Let's get him." I mean, I might have to start him in case of injury. Like if I have to break the glass to get the axe, then Jarvis Landry's just fine. He had a couple very big weeks last year where he was the guy.
In case of emergency, use Jarvis Landry.
Yes, he's very steady. But if you're going to try to predict when he's going to have his best weeks, you're going to be left wanting.
And then as far as the tight ends go, real quick, good luck guessing, because there's 3. Yeah. So pick your poison. That's up to you. I'm not playing that game either.
Well, yeah, and you're gonna pick the wrong one every time because even if you like a guy more than the other 2, the coach won't.
Exactly. It's like I said about OBJ. I'm out on speculating because here's my thing. It's just like if you ask my opinion on something. If I don't have a great answer, I'm going to tell you I don't have a great answer. And when it comes to the Browns tight ends, even though you didn't ask it, we're covering it anyway. Just like there are people in different camps, whether it's, like Harrison Bryant, Austin Hooper, and the very small crowd of people who still believe in David Njoku. I mean, pick your poison. Good luck. I want no part of it. Have your fun. Have your fun. I'm out of it.
All right.
I'm out of it.
How about no analysis whatsoever? Spit out your best Bengals value.
Okay. Best Bengals value is going to be Tyler Boyd. I have a whole spiel that I could give about Chase and Higgins. I won't do it.
We all get it. We all get it. But the common denominator in whichever side that you take is that given the system that they run, the slot receiver is still going to do something good. And the price of Tyler Boyd in terms of ADP has gotten to a point where it's a little ridiculous. The outside dudes are not going to be Tyler Boyd. Volume is king.
He is the AFC. He's the AFC Robert Woods. I'll say that.
Exactly.
You're
exactly right. And my value for the Bengals is Joe Burrow. We saw before he tore up his knee, he was a high volume guy. They threw it over 60 times in a game. 60 times. If a guy is averaging if he's averaging 40 passes a game or 35 passes a game, I don't care who he throws to. He's still going to have some mobility left. His offensive line is better than it is last year because Jonah Williams is healthy. He's an absolute stud, first rounder from NorCal, of course. Everybody's worried that they didn't take Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase. It doesn't matter. Their left tackle is Jonah Williams. They added what's his name from
Riley Reif.
Riley Reif from Washington. And their offensive line can't be worse than last year. It just simply can't. And so they're going to be slightly better. They're going to get the ball out quick. Joe Burrow's got mobility left. And he's got Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is an enigma in his own right, but he's being drafted above what I would say I'm comfortable taking him in, even though I like him as a talent. The wide receivers, I think Boyd's a value, but Joe Burrow is being taken as a quarterback 2 in some of the drafts I've seen.
Yeah.
And with his built-in volume, his overall mobility being average, I would say, he's still going to put up humongous numbers. Like, we're talking, that defense is atrocious. And
Terrible.
they're gonna score tons of points to catch up because their wide receiver talent is so good. Even Drew Sample is an underrated guy at tight end. CJ Uzoma, who knows what he's going to turn into after his ankle injury.
True.
But Joe Burrow is going to put up massive volume numbers, and so I'm going to say Joe Burrow. If I'm saying redraft, I'm going to put him in my top 10 because he's going to put up a ton of points. And that's the point of the game. Score points.
Yeah.
Pick players who are going to score a lot of points. That's how you win. Let's move on.
Yes.
We got the fun stuff. We both share a love for music. The theme for Scott Fishbowl 11 is music, which is awesome. Like, the best idea ever. Whoever gave him that idea, whoever gave Scott that idea, or if he came up with his own, genius. Absolute genius. I know your division is because I pay attention. I follow all things Herms. I subscribe to the Herms Lifetime Daytime show. Everything Herms, I make sure I'm tuned into. But tell the world what your division is, and is there anything special going on this year for you in your Scott Fishbowl division?
I am very, very excited and proud to be a part of the REM division because, like, not only do I get to be in a division with bass player of REM, Mike Mills, but you know, I mean, dude, it's blowing my mind.
Surreal.
It blows my mind every day.
You put that in the chat with just said heavy breathing. And I was like, and of course I'm not a big REM guy. I couldn't point out a song from REM if I tried, but I know of REM. And you said you posted the screenshot Mike Mills from REM, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a member of the band, you know? And I Googled and Wikipedia'd Mike Mills, and I was like, oh shit. He's the bass player for REM, and he's in Herm's division, and I can see why he's freaking out.
Yeah, man. And, you know, REM is one of my favorite bands for sure, because, you know, like, you know, back in 2015, in anybody who follows me, you know, it's like, they know, like, I'm a big mental health advocate awareness guy. You know, it is what it is. I had an episode that wasn't super great, and I went to a partial inpatient treatment program at my local hospital. And during that time, something that really helped me out was listening to REM's music, and I got really into them during that time. And, you know, just listening to their, you know, Michael Stipe's beautiful voice in lyrics, and Mike Mills coming in, you know, not only with the bass, but the piano, and also, you know, doing a lot of great harmonies with Michael Stipe over top of that. I mean, the vocal, it's absolutely a wonderful experience. But, you know, for me as a guitar player, Peter Buck, just the very, like, stripped down, simple to the bones, very, like, reverb laden, just, like, laid back into the vibe. Just, like, I don't know. I love REM. They're a huge influence on me as a person.
It just hits different, baby. It just hits different.
Yeah, it hits different. And, like, they changed the course of alternative music forever with the work that they did. In, you know, just, like, even, like, thinking of the bands that I was super into even before I really, because I mean, I was always acutely aware of their existence between, you know, like, It's the End of the World as We Know It, and, you know, Losing My Religion, and the one I love, you know, but even before
actually,
I got really into them,
recognize those songs, so I guess I was more REM laden than I thought.
Exactly. So it's just, you know, whether you know it or not, they're always around. And, you know, but like, even like listening to interviews, you know, with like different artists that I was already into before I got deep into REM, they would always reference like, oh, well, I was really into REM. I was really, even Kurt Cobain, because I mean, like, shout out, I was a huge, and still am Kurt Cobain fan. Also Dave Grohl, shout out the DMV. But no, like, Kurt Cobain was somebody I idolized a lot. And I remember watching a documentary about him, and something about how in order to, like, you know, help him through his dark period before his dark ending,
He and Michael Stipe of REM were supposed to meet up and collaborate on a project. So that's where I was like, oh, well, Kurt really loved REM. So, okay, well, I should probably check. And man, that was just like one of the most, and like, honestly, like, Scott Fish, if for any reason you hear this, like, thank you so much for giving me this experience, because it means a lot to me, not only just as a music fan, but also like their music really helped me through a very difficult time in my life.
I didn't know who the hell Mike Mills was when you posted that in the chat, and I still got goosebumps from you like sharing that with us. So I was just like, I was blown away. Like, I can't imagine what you felt just like actually going through it firsthand. You were losing
the minute I had a suspicion, like when I was put into the REM division, knowing that Mills, as he prefers to be called per the chat, so cool. I could call him Mills. So Mills, knowing
basically
that,
best friends now.
I mean, yeah, so we're super tight. The collaboration EP is coming out soon. But seriously, like I knew that he had participated in the past, and then when I was placed in the division, I was like, okay, I might have a chance to play with him. But like, it wasn't real to me until I saw he got added, and I was at my local gas station buying beer, and when I saw it, I cried.
Yeah,
just
when you posted it, I couldn't hold back happy tears for you, because it couldn't happen to a better guy. But you know what you have to do now is snipe the ever-living crap out of him.
Man.
You need to do research on who he picked the last couple of years in Scott Fishbowl and just snipe him and then rub it in the chat. I want you to just elbows deep. I'm sniping you, Mike Mills. That's going to happen.
I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I picked Red Hot Chili Peppers because I'm the hot sauce guy, but I also they influenced me a lot. I mean, I'm a California guy. I mean, a lot of the lyrics in Red Hot Chili Peppers early stuff that was more of that steady groove in music. They kind of got away from me with their later albums, but Red Hot Chili Peppers ballads and their just the real raw stuff from Cusack, all these tracks just, I mean, they hit you. And like, obviously Under the Bridge is just legendary for what he went through while he was trying to detox.
Oh yeah.
And we're talking real stuff. Sticking with mental health, I mean, we're both part of the Hayden Hurst Podathon with Face Off.
I will say though, real quick, just as a guitar player, John Frusciante is a god. I had to say it before we went forward, because I would be remiss to go through a conversation about the Red Hot Chili Peppers and not shout out John Frusciante.
Frusciante's an absolute god. He's up there in the he's going to be in the clouds for eternity.
Yes.
Anyways, but
this is your show.
Mental Health Podathon is coming up in a week or so with Michael Hoff, all the guys from the Face Off. We're going to have Hayden Hurst on the Podathon. Lots of big names, actually. Scott and I are going to be on there for a half an hour. It's really important. I can't stress enough how much therapy has helped me decompress and process some of the really bad stuff that you think about. And the world's going to break you down. I struggle with a lot of stuff. I mean, everybody's got a thing. I struggle with processing things that I don't have control over, but I'm still going to blame myself for. That's my thing, is like, bad things can happen thousands of miles away. I'm going to think about what could I have done differently to avoid that happening to those people. I feel for everybody. I don't know how to do anything other than process it in a certain way. I didn't have the keys to that until I went to therapy. I didn't have the keys to not blame myself for every single wrong thing around me until I went to therapy. So go to therapy if you feel like you're lost, feel like the world is beating you up and there's no out. There's always an out. And usually you can work your way out yourself if you go and you talk to somebody. It doesn't even have to be a therapist. If you have somebody that you trust, just talk to them. The worst they're going to do is walk away and say, I don't want to hear it. Then you find the next person you trust, and then you go and talk to them. And you talk their ear off until they buzz off. There's billions of people in the world. Somebody's bound to listen. Don't just do it alone, because you can't. If you do it alone, you're going to be left to your own flaws and devices. It's not going to work. Take it from me. Take it from Herms. Take it from everybody who's going to be on that pod alone. One thing that helped me more than anything was finding pieces, little things around me that I was just overlooking all the time. Things that make you happy, bring you joy. I mean, I don't want to sound like Marie Kondo here, but there's lots of things that bring me joy that I was just simply not paying attention to. I wasn't cultivating that kind of emotion from these things until I just stood back and said, "Hey, that makes me happy." How about you, Herms? What are the things around you that bring you joy?
Yeah, and there are certain things. I mean, I have a complicated relationship with music at this point. And also just speaking on the whole mental health thing, I deal with type 2 bipolar disorder. Bipolar 2, I think, is the more popular name. So the just to explain, because it's important to me, if I'm allowed this soapbox.
Yes,
A
sir.
lot of the understanding around bipolar disorder is just like the big ups and the big downs, and the bigs up, and so my understanding of what I deal with, and I'm working on not saying suffer from, because it is a strength. It is something that actually really makes me who I am, and I'm really trying to embrace the language around it more when I talk about it. But anyways, so rather than the extreme highs, my manic periods when I experience mania. So I mean, like there's like hypermania. Or like I'm not super great with the terminology, but like I think hypomania is what it's called for bipolar 2. I don't know. But anyways, if you think of bipolar disorder just as like a sound wave, like up, down, up, down. My up does not go super up, but my down still goes as far down as the traditional like type 1 that people have in their minds. Shout out bipolar 2. Also, like manic depression is what that's I think what it was referred to for a very long time. Anyways, yes, it's weird, it's tough to deal with, but it's something that really gets me through fantasy football. Honestly, I came into this space because I really like playing fantasy football. I went to fantasy sports camp when I was a kid. Like I'm not. I was never like like I was never a cool kid. You know what I mean? But I always really liked sports, and I always really liked doing the quote unquote nerdy stuff. But and my own self esteem, being the journey that I've gone through and still go through today, being what it is. Like never being considered cool or whatever, but like. I really loved it. And every summer that camp would happen, I would go with my siblings. I would go with my friends. And it was a super fun time. I got really into doing this. And honestly, that's why I joined the community and why I became a content creator, because I love it. And because like whenever I've won my leagues, that championship week, the feeling of joy that I get in my heart is just wonderful. And I was like, okay, well, I can win my leagues and I know some stuff. So if I tell people my advice, hopefully they can do well and hopefully they can be happy. Honestly, I really enjoy making people happy, whether it's through me being funny or for me being helpful or me playing music or whatever. It's just my outlet is empathy. I want to make other people happy because and I've said this to, numerous people before. Shout out Coop. On Twitter. If you don't know, then you should know.
Compliments. Hashtag
100%.
compliments.
And I remember I told him one time when we were having a conversation, my biggest goal is like, honestly, at the end of the day, I want people to feel about themselves the way I wish I could feel about myself. Because that's a constant struggle. There are times through, the up and down nature of who I am where I'm killing it and I'm confident and I'm feeling great. And then there are times where it's awful and I'll tweet weird things and I'll be on the open bar pod in front of Scott Fish having a panic attack. I'll get weird and I'll say weird stuff. And it was a really embarrassing moment for me that I still think about sometimes, but like, it's hard for me to deal with that. And I've gotten better as time has gone along. And, like you said, shout out therapy, like through my therapist, I've done a really great job of building the coping mechanisms and strategies within myself to be able to avoid panic attacks for the most part in the moment. Also, real quick, shout out 3-step process. If you ever feel that way, the 3 things that I do, remind yourself of your name and where you are, remind yourself of what you are doing, and try and bring yourself back down to earth as best you can with any sort of rationality, and then pick a simple task that you can do anywhere between 10 to 30 minutes and focus on that. That's a great way to do it. Try it, give it a shot. If it doesn't work, I apologize, but it's worked for me. Just whatever. Anyways, but like how I overcome a lot of this, I try and do things for others, because even like I struggle to find the strength within myself to make myself feel better sometimes. Yeah, I wouldn't say sometimes, a lot. But if I'm helping others and I'm making others feel better, then I'm doing something that feels important, and it's.
But you are. I mean,
it's important to me that I do things that make people feel happy, because I my whole life, whether or not I've enjoyed it, I've always been a little weird. I've always been a little goofy. Like I've had people make fun of me for certain things, but at the same time, people, they see me do this being Herms, and it's entertaining, and entertainment is happiness.
To quote Ocean's 12, which is a really obscure reference, but to quote Ocean's 12, the nose plays. Your brand of weird is endearing to everybody I know, including myself. I know myself pretty well now. We love the brand of Herms that we get, ups and downs all around. So we get all the Herms that we can get, and I haven't had a Herms that I didn't like yet. So whether you like yourself or not, that's irrelevant to us. We love the Herms. We want more Herms. We want everything you have to offer. Even if you're being super awkward in front of Scott Fish, we like that Herms too. It's like we can't not like you, dude. So that brings us joy for you just to be yourself, because yourself is pretty damn awesome. And we're going to head into the big time finish with that being said, because Herms is in his feelings, and that's okay. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to break down at any point in time. You're allowed to be a grown-ass adult and cry. It's totally fine. That's normal. And that's as normal as you should be expected to be. But I want you to spill your guts on something else. Pretty important to me. I'm a very judgmental person, if you haven't known before. I need to know your controversial food takes, because, I need to judge you.
Okay, controversial food takes. Okay, all right. Like, this is weird. I don't really know if it's technically weird or anything, because
spill it and I will judge you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, whenever I tell people like, oh, I'm going to pick up a cheesesteak, it's always reminded of me, well, if it's not from Philly, then it's a steak and cheese. So, okay, fine. If we consider it to be a different sandwich, then this take is not weird. But if you consider it to be one and the same, then maybe it is. I really, really enjoy having, instead of the whiz, I like provolone. Ooh. And I also like going extra mayo and grilled onions. That's how I enjoy that shit.
Okay.
I enjoy the provolone, the extra mayo, and the grilled onions on my cheesesteak or steak and cheese, depending on how prudish you are about it. And like I've talked about this with people, just like I'm sure there are other things that I could bring up that
I think the Philly people are waiting outside your place already right now, the torches and pitchforks.
That's fine. And I will say, like, I've been like my uncle, shout out Uncle Chuck, what's up? He lived outside Philly for a long time. I've made trips to Philly in my past. Jim's, that's my personal preference if we're talking Philly stuff. So it's like, before you come at me, know that I've enjoyed the traditional steak. So like,
the Pats people are breaking your door down right now.
But they were already having a war about that, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I've experienced that, and I've experienced the sandwiches that are available in my area. And in my area, I prefer it to be provolone, extra mayo, and grilled onions. That's what I want on it. That's what I prefer.
I don't have any problem with the mayo or the grilled onions, and that's not a popular Philly thing, because they're all about the whiz. And I will disagree with you on the provolone part. I love provolone cheese, but if I haven't had a proper cheese steak or steak and cheese, whatever it is, I prefer the Whiz because the Whiz is upper echelon, best. It's got to be on your cheesesteak. You got to have the Whiz. It doesn't matter if you have mayonnaise, extra peppers, extra onions, extra beef. You got to have the Whiz. That's where I'm going to draw the line. Is the Whiz is much superior on a cheesesteak to provolone.
And I like Whiz.
Provolone just doesn't have enough flavor for me. It doesn't have the bite that you get. Provolone's too mild.
Yeah, I feel you. And again, like I'm still pro Whiz in general. if I'm just having my, although I will say, like, I've never had it before, but I'm just based off of trusting my palate and whatnot. I kind of want to try at some point a pepper jack. I really want to see how that goes.
Ooh.
I want to try.
That would be interesting.
It could be.
What's your spirit animal?
Bartolo Colon.
Big sexy.
I don't need to say anything more than that because if you know, you know.
Yeah.
It's Bartolo Colon.
Bartolo, big sexy. Shout out Bartolo Colon. He was throwing 98 and throwing gas when he was in the mid 90s. I remember those days. And
the Paul Bunyan of baseball.
Yep. I love Bartolo. My spirit animal is an eagle because they're fearless, they have great vision, and they always get theirs.
100%.
Let's wrap it up. We're going to do a rhetorical question, and it might require some deep thought, but I want a pretty quick answer. If you go back to any day in history, if you could go back to any day in history as any person, where and when and who?
Member of the audience at Woodstock 99 for Rage Against the Machine.
Wow. You just want to be there.
Yeah. I want to see that. Because I've seen the footage, but I want to be there.
Where are you seated? Next to the mosh, in the mosh? Or are you kind of laying back?
I'm getting my limbs broken in the mosh. Because so here's the thing. If I'm assuming that I can go back and choose anybody, I'm choosing somebody in better health than I am in right now physically. So I would want
so you could get thrown around a little bit.
Yeah. I want to be somebody in good enough shape to be in the pit, Woodstock 99 Rage. That's what I want to do.
Great answer. All right. So this has been Shock Block Special Edition, a special all caps Herms edition. Herms, let everybody know basically where to find you, and be specific because we love you. And I'm just going to go back and watch all the Petite Pods again, but I'm only going to watch the first 5 or 10 seconds.
Petite Pods. You can find me singing the Cooter Doodle Petite Pods theme song with that. But also on Twitter at Herms NFL, you can find my redraft work with The Lateral at The Lateral FF on Twitter, and check out the website www.thelateralff.com. We also have a YouTube page. That's youtube.com/ bunch of letters and numbers.
WQ6842Z.
But hey, if you go to our Twitter at The Lateral FF or to our website, like I said, www.thelateralff.com, it links off to it. You can find it from there. And also check out our podcast, The Lateral Show, co-hosted by me and my best friend Malcolm at McLateralFF on Twitter himself. Definitely follow him as well. If you like me, you'll like him. Vice versa is what it is. I've known him since I was like 7. That's my boy. We break down redraft, PPR, doing it all, and we'll dive into Dynasty here and there. We'll dive into whatever. But if you want to enjoy fantasy football, humorous, informative, but also a little bit of a sideways take, The Lateral, a sideways take, sideways look. Wow, I messed up my own slogan. A sideways look at fantasy football. And you can also find me with the Rum Boys Fantasy Network. Rum Boys After Dark, because hey, before we started doing this, guess where we were? So, definitely check out the Rum Boys Fantasy Network. Just Google Rum Boys with a Z at the end, rumboys.com. The YouTube channel is awesome. Follow Robbie at RumBoysR on Twitter. He's a wonderful person. I just want to shout out him. I mean, honestly, he's
Robbie is a legend.
Fellow, blossomer from the DMV, somebody I consider to be a great friend. It's just as I consider you to be a great friend, Bo, but just, enough about me, enough about Robbie. I want to get into, what you have to say because this is your show and not mine.
I'm going to wrap up the show with, you can find me at Bo_Mick Big Time. I am writing for so many outlets now that I'm actually considering doing a link tree just so you can find everything that I write. But I'll go through the sites that I currently write for. Of course, nimblewnumbers.com/Bo gets you access to all of my DFS articles. That'll help you win money. Every week, we're smashing cash games. We're smashing GPP. We have a lot of content coming up this 21 season that's going to make all of our friends, all of our patrons a ton of money.
It's true.
We got all the edges. We got the Mathematician this year. It's going to be a hellacious waterfall of money.
Woo.
And I write DFS now for Ball Blast, and that's a new development. The Ball Blast girls themselves said, "Hey, we need a DFS writer," and you're the only guy. Actually, no, I'm going to be writing DFS for Ball Blast with Nate Williams from up in Canada, the True North guys. I mean, Nate's awesome. I'll be writing DFS with Nate for Ball Blast. I'm also writing Dynasty for Dynasty Vipers. Shout out the Canadian Phillip Rivers, Matt Donnelly, Dingus himself. And then I'm also writing Dynasty for Going for Two with Jeff Lambert. Shout out Jeff Lambert. Probably the best ambassador you can get for anybody trying to get into the fantasy football community / industry. He's as good as it gets at teaching you how the tools that you need to be a better content creator. And then, of course, I write Dynasty for rumboys.com. And you might have heard of Robbie. Robbie saying, "Hey, I want you to drop some of your stuff on the Rumboys site." I said, "I'll do it for you, Robbie, because you're a good guy." My next article I'm going to write is going to be a feature on a rookie, and it's going to break the internet. So stay tuned early next week for when I drop my next article on rumboys.com. And that's going to be it. I also sell food products, pantry, non-perishable food products, including the world's most deliciously intense hot sauce, Hotbox Batch, at bigtimeflavor.co. Enter the promo code CHALK21 at checkout, get your 10% off. And I'm also donating every dollar of profit from Monday's SFB Podathon, starting at 10 o'clock Eastern, going through 10 o'clock Eastern the next day. And for every sale, I'm donating all the profit to the No Kid Hungry Fund. I believe every kid in America should have a meal, 3 meals a day, without question. No kids go hungry under my watch, especially when I'm in the food industry. So make sure you go and purchase during that Monday 24-hour period between Monday and Tuesday during the SFV Podathon, and all of profits are going to No Kid Hungry during that 24-hour period. I'll also be on the Podathon when it first starts at 10 o'clock Eastern on Monday morning. That's all I got. We're gonna wrap this up. Thank you for joining Chalk Blocked on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It's a Nimble with Numbers production. I'm Bo McBrayer. Peace out. Peace, love, and happiness. Good vibes only. Thank you again. Check us out.
What's up?
We're still live, and Scott's playing the commercials on silent.
Oh.